You gonna eat any of these bananas, you think?
Uh-uh.
Okay, just tell me. Oh my gosh.
The heck? Yeah, when I posted this design on Reddit and asked people how I would print it, everyone replied with, "Oh, you can't even print that. It's not possible. It'll come out like shit. There's like, you'll never be able to kind of get any sort of structural integrity from it. It's not going to function like a spring." I heard literally everything, and this is my second try. The first try was this one. That broke, and that's why I printed it again. And it broke only because I kind of was pulling on it from like, I was trying to pull it apart a little bit too hard, probably, and it broke. Had a little weak point there. So this time I actually, I did the infill instead of like 15%. I went to, I believe, let's see, where did I put the infill? I put it at, go to strength here. I put it at 25% infill, and I went from grid to rectilinear on this. And it's noticeably heavier than this. I mean, I guess not noticeably, but yeah, it's definitely heavier than this, but not significantly. It's funny, kind of the springiness of it. You would think it being plastic, is PLA. This is just basic PLA. You would think that that would not allow it to be very springy, or you would think maybe it would crack or break under pressure. But as you can see, well, I'm not going to test this one too much, but I mean, you can bend it just like a spring. I don't want to break this one. I don't actually think this one's a lot stronger than this one, and it probably will not break nearly as easily as this one did. Yeah, I just got it out of the printer, guys. I don't want to break it yet. So yeah, but it's been it printed out really well, I think. I mean, it's got a lot of burr here still, and I can sit here and kind of grind and sand at it for a little while, and I will. Might do that right now a little bit. The design's actually quite easy to do if you're not familiar with Onshape. Onshape.com. Quite easy to make a design like this on there. It's essentially, they've got an object called, or a tool called a helix, and you can kind of create a helix and then wrap a shape around it. So you're just kind of wrapping a circle essentially around it and then you tell it how many turns and how long and what the radius is, and that stuff is quite easy to experiment with. And then what I did at the very end, where it ended, I just rotated that back into itself on either end, and that made it a full design, full spring. And it is springy. You can't use it. I don't know. I actually think you could use this as a structural part in some things. It'll never be strong enough to use it on like a heavy load-bearing situation, obviously. Like you wouldn't be able to install something on your mountain bike like this. But I think for like, I'd say I'm probably pushing down about 15 pounds or so of pressure on here right now. Maybe 10 to 15 pounds, for sure, at least 10. And it's well capable of bouncing back. Let me see if I can put something of weight on it. So here's my big 40-ounce water bottle. Let me pick up the phone here. Well, obviously that's... Look at that. It's holding it up, and the water's full. It's definitely holding it up. And this water bottle full, I'm guessing this weighs, I don't know, a few pounds. And you see, it's not collapsing it all the way. And by the way, I'm not like holding it in any shape or form. That is so cool. That's awesome. So yeah, it could definitely be used as a structural part. I think like a functional part is what I'm trying to say. Like a functional spring, it could be used for that. And it's not likely to break. It's not likely to break in its function. Now it may break in if you try to pull it in different directions and whatnot. I would not do that because I did that yesterday with its little cousin here, and that did break. But like I said, with this, I was actually pulling it apart, and that's when it broke. I don't intend to do that again with this. But so what I did in order to strengthen this, let's see, I made some changes over here. I went from 15 infill to 25, and I went from grid to rectilinear. And if you want to see what difference that makes, we can actually see that in the preview. Hopefully you guys can see that. Here, let's get a little close. That's actually what it's done in order to create that linear support. It's literally filled in every bit of that cavity, which is interesting. I expected to, since this is, I believe that's about 7.5 millimeters wide. I thought being 7.5 millimeters wide, that would actually create some sort of a like rectilinear kind of shape inside, but it hasn't. And it's done this. Now, you see when you come up and you get into an angle where obviously you would get more than 7.5 millimeters in a cross section, that's where it has created that rectilinear shape. And then obviously as you come up, in here, this will be a good place to show it. Yeah, so that very top of the spring, definitely are able to see that rectilinear shape. And you can tell how strong that's going to be. That's going to be so strong. It's funny how well you can kind of see visually and judge with yourself based on just your life experience, how strong something will be. And it's most of the time that's true. Some of the times that human intuition will fail you and you'll think that something is very strong when in fact it's not at all strong. What is really cool is these tree supports that we took off a moment ago. So these are tree supports. If you want to see a really cool tree support, let me go get that for you. Check this out. Check out how cool this tree support is. Again, another Reddit post that people chastise me for. They're like, there is no way you would ever need to create a support that looks like that. It looks like you just printed a box upside down. That's exactly what I did. I printed a box upside down. I didn't do it to get a cool support, but that's what came out of it. And there's a reason I did that, okay? And I'm happy to pull up, if anybody's interested, I'm happy to pull up what the design looks like that necessitated a support that looks like this. But what was cool about it was I think I'm going to try to create some sort of artwork with just support. I think there is like something to be said about creating beautiful support. Forget the actual part you're printing, like print it for the support. I haven't seen anybody do that. I'm not saying nobody has. I'm sure somebody has already done it. But this is like super fun, I think. And what's cool about it is you can kind of bend it on itself like that, and it can support from like the tension on the top, it can support it. And if you look at that top surface, what sucks about live, you can't really focus on anything that you're trying to point to. But you see that like super fine mesh it lays out. on top of the support at the very tip of the tree branches. I think that's really awesome. What was super satisfying about this is this was obviously against a flat surface. So when I grabbed it, it literally just pulled off all in one piece. That's a pretty tricky thing to get right. I didn't get it right on purpose. It just kind of happened. But I was so happy when it came off like that. It was the most satisfying thing. And clear out some of this mess here. I'm gonna have to vacuum the desk. But anyway, so this was the spring that I designed last week. Let me see if I can pull up that design. So if you haven't been on Onshape, super awesome tool, and totally free, which is amazing. I've created a lot of stuff on here, and I've only been doing this for about a month now. You can see how much stuff I've kind of designed and created, and each one of these things is its own little project with like lots and lots of parts. This is a wall planter I'm working on that I could really use some help with. I designed a full chest set, actually not a full one just yet, but this is the spring. So you can kind of see it only took really 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 steps. That's it. This plane is totally unnecessary. That plane. So the way you do this, and it's really neat because it allows you to kind of go back to the initial thing that you did. So I just kind of created a line for an axis, so that this actually probably wasn't even necessary. So that's one step that's not necessary. That plane's not necessary. So then I created this helix, right? So you create this helix, and these are that's all the settings that it takes to create that helix. Really nothing crazy. You just tell it that you want an you can do a cylindrical helix, which I could have easily done. I just wanted a little bit more control. And then you just tell it that the radius is 30 millimeters and the height is 180 millimeters. And I want that to be a total of 8 revolutions. So that when you tell it that, it kind of creates the spacing. So you can change all of that, right? And you can see the shape changing as I do that, go up and down in there. And then what I did was I just created this little circle, which is 7.5 millimeters. And then in this next step, which is called a sweep, I told it that I want you to sweep that circle around the helix. So the circle, which is face of sketch 2, around the helix, which is the curve 1, right? So and then that was, we were pretty much done when we did that. And then the last thing I had to do was tell it to revolve this face and this face around this center axis. So that edge of the sketch, which is this axis here. And once I did that, you just get a fully functioning spring. That's how long it takes to create a very complex shape like a spring. And you don't think that a spring is a complex shape, but it really is, because it has a lot of parameters, right? The thickness and the rotational, the radius itself, and the spacing and all of those things. It's a structural part. If you were to design this without that helix shape, it would probably take you a day. I don't even know how you'd do it, but it's just available to you up in the menu here as helix. Anyway, so what it gives you is a super cool spring. So I had I left the camera on all night last night and did a live of printing it, and nobody guessed what it was as I was printing. People it got to halfway point and it was like, oh, it's a rib cage. No. Because nobody would think you could print a spring on its side like that. I thought, just one of the cooler things I think you can print. And it's got it's got a pretty springy feel to it. Again, it's a spring. Yeah, pretty sick. Yeah, it's functionally, I think it's actually nearly perfect. Now, I think if you were to want to do this really right, what you would do is you would use the support PLA for the supports. I didn't change anything. It was just basically the same PLA that was created to support. If you use support PLA for the supports, I think you can get this thing looking absolutely perfect without all of these rough edges that it has. This thing, the camera will not focus on the edges here. Anyway, super cool. Now there is something here though that's those Redditors that were saying you can't do this were right in one respect. The spacing between the ribs here has to be large enough for a tree support to kind of be able to kind of exist in between it. So in this case, you see the tree supports were exactly wide enough to fit underneath on the plane. Now, if you want to spring that prints like that, that may not be possible in this technique. Well, it's still possible, but you'd really want to use support PLA then, because what would happen is it would start printing the support on the bottom piece, which is a perfectly fine thing to do. I haven't done it here because I don't really like supports starting on my part. But yeah, cool. Well, thanks for tuning in. Gonna end it here.